We love to see some civic involvement here, and if you've seen the show Parks and Rec, we're hoping it doesn't go anything like that, right? Nobody's gonna throw anything at us. We're just gonna go through the brief, James already said all the things of that, but we're gonna kind of give you just an overview first of the department and how we got to the point of where we are today. So this is our department. If you don't know, you don't have to live in Mansfield to be here, of course, to play disc golf or to go to any of our parks. So we do have 51 full-time employees, 32 part-time. We have 24 parks around the city, over 1,100 acres. We have our linear trail, our ponds, our playgrounds, and of course our public-private partners. All of that comes together into our department. We are, as you may or may not know, funded by half-cent sales tax. So unlike most Parks and Rec departments, we don't get property taxes. We're funded by a half a penny of the 8 1/4 cents that you pay in Mansfield. So tourism is always a great thing for us to be able to draw. So something like this that brings people in from outside is great because that's helping us bring more sales tax. People are coming, they're eating food, they're doing other things while they're in the city, and then that is what funds the bulk of our department. So we have a mission statement, we have a vision statement. All of that really ties together with our goals. They kind of came out of the master plan, but we have as a city, this is our true north philosophy, is just the key aspects that we all try to work towards. The city council also sets their strategic priorities, which is that top row of goals, and then the bottom row is just our department goals, which did come out of the master plan. And again, it's a lot, it's kind of big picture stuff, but it kind of helps you see what we're going for in the end. You know, we're trying to innovate, we're trying to develop and maintain the existing facilities that we have and make sure that they're staying usable and that they're being used and loved throughout the years, and not just going to waste. We're also always looking for ways to improve health and wellness for the community, so anything we can do to add new recreation options, all of those things really all tie together, and again, they fit up into both the city and the council goals like that. When we did our master plan back in 2020, we did a ton of public feedback, all of which helped us develop our plans. The main requests we had was people wanted more parks near them, right? They wanted a park closer to their house. They want aquatics, they want trails, and they want more recreation options. And this is kind of where the disc golf fits in as far as one of our recreation options. But again, the park distribution is a big one too, because the project doesn't just include disc golf, it's also all the park improvements at this park. And that's something that all of those residents in that neighborhood are then able to enjoy. Out of our master plan, with all that feedback that we looked at, as well as all the data, all the research of what do we have as a department, what do we need, what do residents want, where are we lacking, where are the areas that we're really lacking. This is where we came into our 4 focus areas: trails, recreation and aquatics, our athletic fields, and then our playgrounds, which really, playgrounds kind of symbolizes the park distribution area, more neighborhood park kind of. We also have a series of strategies that came out of the master plan. One of them is the 10-minute walk, which is a nationwide initiative to try and get every resident to live within a 10-minute walk to a park. The current average nationally is 50%. When we did the master plan in 2020, Mansfield was at about 21%, which is not great. We are up to about 39% now, which is great. We've been working really hard on that, again, trying to get parks closer to people that are spread throughout the city. We're working on doing all of the upgrades to all of our facilities to make sure we're maintaining our ADA accessibility. We've gotten accredited with our national organization. We've been working on our cost recovery goals. Again, all of these things just to make sure that we are in line with all those big goals and meeting the needs of our residents. The main thing, of course, that came out of the master plan was projects. We have 100 projects that are both citywide and then grouped by quadrant, which is how we plan the city. So 287 is our boundary this way, and then Broad Street is our boundary this way. So that's how we get northeast, northwest, northwest, you guys see it. So we have all of those quadrants. So each quadrant has different projects, and then within that, they're all ranked by priority. So our master plan was done not just by city staff, but we actually had an advisory committee that included council members, residents, park board, our advisory board, as well as staff from different levels of the organization, so that everybody's perspectives were really viewed and heard. And then again, they looked at all the data, they looked at all the feedback and the demand that people were saying, and that's what they used to develop the projects for each quadrant and also to rank the priorities of how important, how urgent is this need. So this part here, James McKnight Park West, that's one of my favorite pictures. You can't really tell, but I will tell you, he has a really great handlebar mustache right there. It actually opened in 1988. The park had been used as baseball fields since the 60s, but officially as a park, it opened in 1988. It had been called City Park when it was just baseball fields. And then the city actually got a grant from Texas Parks and Wildlife to develop it. At the time, they were calling it Central Park because they had a vision to create essentially a central park right in the middle of the city that would, connect the city and kind of be the hub for everything. This is actually one of the original plans. This is what was submitted to Texas Parks and Wildlife in 1987 when we went for the grant. You can see the softball fields at McKnight Park East, which are there now. However, on the west side, it actually had plans for tennis courts, basketball courts, and camping, as well as playgrounds and restrooms and a series of trails and things. So obviously they ran out of money before they got to the West Park, so none of that stuff got built, but that was the original vision. They wanted it to be, again, a recreation hub, lots of activity, lots of variety of options for residents. But since they didn't end up really developing the west side, it pretty much has just sat as an access point. It's a trailhead for the Walnut Creek Linear Trail. Between 1988 and 2007, when the linear trail actually opened, they did a few things. They added the trail between the two McKnight parks. They added another trail that went to Hardy Almond that way and added a bridge. But again, really until the linear trail opened was the only time it saw significant traffic. But still to this day, not much. Again, that's the exact same pavilion that's been there since 1988. It's just been painted a little bit, and the trail obviously has been redone. So it's had maintenance, and we've kept it up. It's not deteriorating by any means, but it is not used at all. So when we did the master plan, the park here, renovations to that park was the fourth highest priority in that southwest quadrant. So that's where it is in the city. And I can tell you the first priority was Catherine Rose Memorial Park. It was ranked higher because it's a bigger park. It gets a lot more traffic. It is in progress right now. I've not seen it. There's a lot of really exciting stuff happening. We can tell you about it later. We don't have time to get into it right now. But Rose Park is in progress. Number 2 is the Walnut Creek Linear Trail Expansion West. That is also in progress. That one's good. We're on our way there. Number 3 is Julian Field Park, which is right here on Broad Street across the street. That is also in progress. That is going to be starting later this year. We're doing some renovations to the park there, adding a really nice memorial there for veterans. That's already in progress. So here we are at number 4. That's the next in line, and that is where we are at McKnight Park West. When the master plan committee sat down and looked at this park, and they looked at all the needs that we had, all the demand, where are we lacking, what do we need, this is what they developed. What they proposed was a pavilion, a playground, restrooms, exercise stations, a disc golf course, and pickleball courts, as well as an automated gate for the park. That was their vision. That would hit a couple of needs. That was what they felt like would make the most sense there. Again, this is 2019, 2020 when these plans were put together. Above all, the goal from the master plan committee was to make sure that this park was still a quiet neighborhood park, but something that would better serve the residents. We do know from census data that about 50% of the homes in the surrounding area do have children under the age of 18, and it is one of our lowest ranking economically. It is one of the poorer census districts in that area. And so again, anytime we can get more recreation options, free recreation options to families, that's a high priority. That hits our 10-minute walk, that hits all of those different goals that we were going. But again, this is similar to that's Harold Bell Park, which is off 360 in the Mill Valley neighborhood. That's Mills Park, and this is Donald Bard Park, which is over just off Debbie Lane. So these are all neighborhood parks with the same sort of vibe. It's just really intended for the neighbors. They don't typically have a huge parking lot because it's meant for people to walk to the park, right? It's just small amenities, little playgrounds, little walking loops, pavilions, things like that for the neighbors. So from 2020 to today, we are always collecting feedback. We're doing surveys on a regular basis, but we are also always talking to residents, whether it's specifically about a project or just out and about in the community, where every time somebody puts in a request or puts in a complaint, all that gets logged. We're paying attention to all of it, cataloging all of it. So we know the concerns of the area. Security and traffic is always a concern. That's pretty much a concern at any park that we have. We work with the police department a lot to make sure that all those needs are addressed on an ongoing basis, but also just what can we do specifically for each area. We know that the disc golf community has been excited about the idea of having a disc golf course in Mansfield, so we know that demand is still there. We also know that things like shade and inclusivity with the playground are always high priorities, so those are all the things we were looking at. In 2022, the department sat down and submitted another grant to Texas Parks and Wildlife for this project to try and get the funding to develop it. We were in January 23 awarded $750,000. That's a matching grant, and that is for the project as we proposed in the grant. So the way grants work, if you get a grant for something, you have to build what you got a grant for, right? We can't turn around and take the money and then use it to build a pool. But what we proposed in the grant was essentially what the master plan had proposed, but with some slight modifications based on the new information that we knew now at the time. We did include a trail to Julian Field Park, which I said is just up the street, because that neighborhood does not have sidewalks, so that would get a little bit better accessibility for the area. A playground within the park, a pavilion, park amenities, a looped walking trail with some exercise equipment, and then some parking lot and entryway improvements, and a disc golf course. We did not include the pickleball courts when we submitted it for the grant, because by this time, Catherine Rose Memorial Park was already being developed, and there are pickleball courts going in over there, actually at Hardy Almond Soccer across the street. But as part of that whole project, we're already getting outdoor pickleball courts. So that need was no longer there. We also did not add the automated gate that had previously been in the project, because again, after hearing some of the issues that they were having with the driveway, the security, things like that, we felt like that wasn't the best way to address those issues. So that was not included on the grant. These are the elements that were included in the grant. These are the elements that will be included in the project, again, because of how the grant project works, or how the grant funding works there. So all of that got us to the point where we are today. We have the funding, we have the project, we have the concept, but we need to go further with that. So I'm going to hand it over to our project manager, Tali, and she is going to get into much more detail on all the things you guys really want to hear about. So thank you guys.
Hi everyone, my name is Natali, and I'm the project manager and licensed landscape architect here for the Department of Parks and Recreation. And I'm excited to be here to talk to you about the disc golf. I know we are all waiting to hear about it, but I quickly wanted to summarize what I have here. So this project as a whole has two components. There's the disc golf component to it, and there's the park component, and there's park improvements to it. But before we get to the disc golf, I wanted to give you a brief overview of the park, its background, some of the constraints we're having to deal with, and how we're going to actually look at absorbing all of the constraints and all of the challenges we have, and look into putting it in the project and addressing some of the concerns that the residents of the neighborhood have brought up to us, and so that we can make this a safer park for everyone to use. So this is a quick park context map that kind of shows you where McKnight Park West, for those of you who don't know, where it's located. It is located on a major creek corridor here, Walnut Creek corridor, that connects all of our park systems. It is also connected to Julian Field Park. Here's a closer look and as Anne mentioned, the grant talks about how we are going to be connecting that park with Julian Field Park with that trail corridor. So here's a quick existing conditions map. I call this the existing conditions map. It's aerial map, and you also have some display boards to get up close and look at it. It basically shows you all the existing elements on the park property as they are today. It's a heavily wooded park. There's a creek corridor here, the Walnut Creek. There's also a tributary that kind of divides the park a little bit. There's an existing parking lot here. This is Hillcrest residential neighborhood right there. There's also homes on the other side. There's a bunch of easements on the park. We'll get to that really quickly. This is park existing conditions. If you have not been to the park, it's a really gorgeous park in a quiet neighborhood. That's the beautiful shaded trail through there. There's a bridge at Walnut Creek Trail. That's the existing pavilion. There's some signs and existing parking lot. And so with that, I want to talk a little bit about the park constraints. It's really important to talk about this because I don't think that we can talk about either of these components in isolation. They are all connected and they are very much a part of each other. So in order to talk about the disc golf, we still need to talk about what's going on with the park. So this dark blue over here is what is called as floodway. And the light blue portion is the floodplain. You can see that almost 90% of the park is within a floodplain. What that means is that in these areas, development is severely limited. Whenever any portion of park or a site is within a floodway or floodplain, we have to be really careful about how we develop it. It is susceptible to flooding. Here's a quick site constraints map that we have put together. What that shows is, it's another view. This is still the park property. The red line is the park boundary. In addition to the creek corridors that you see here and the trails, it shows you additional information like these dashed lines and these dashed lines, which are easements on a property within which you cannot build anything. You can cross them, but you cannot build anything within it. No big structures, nothing permanent. Also, these dashed lines over here are easements. These circles that you see on this map are basically all shade trees. So we have some topographic challenges on site to deal with. We have the floodway that I mentioned. It's a heavily wooded park. There is limited access, vehicular access to the park. These are residential streets. But as I mentioned, as Anne mentioned earlier, we have taken into consideration what the neighborhood concerns were, and one of their greatest concern was to keep this neighborhood quiet. A quiet neighborhood is really important to us, so we do not want these streets to be flooded with cars, so that severely limits our access to this park. There is access through the 287 through the other side that we are looking into in order to alleviate that issue, but that is a part of our constraints map. Existing easements, obviously, like we talked about, we have to be careful about the utility easements. There's going to be significant coordination with regulatory agencies, TPWD, the U.S. Corps of Engineers, more than that, and also that we'll have to look into and factor into our timeline for this project. There's the traffic circulation that obviously the neighborhood has brought to our attention. We are looking into improving the traffic circulation around the park and at the intersection of Palm Street and Wisteria Street. There is pedestrian circulation, currently no sidewalks. So we have to think about the connectivity of how the pedestrians can actually take advantage of the park, the recreation, and how we can establish connectivity from the neighborhood, from the sidewalk to get to the Walnut Creek Trail corridor. That's a part of our master plan initiative at the neighborhood parks, and we are looking into making that happen. And then obviously increasing access to the natural areas, which is again a part of what neighborhood park development is all about, making those areas accessible to people. So having said that, we take all that into account, all those constraints, and remember, this is just the surface. This is just initial preliminary analysis. We have taken in the concerns from the neighborhood, we have looked at the constraints, and then we have developed an overall vision. We are calling this the proposed park vision map. What this shows is we think for now, for the information that we have broadly divided this park into three broad areas. Number one is basically called the central connecting green space. Number two is the buffers and natural areas, and number three is the proposed disc golf. The 1 and 2 are basically going to act as more or less as a natural buffer between the disc golf area that you can see at the back and the connecting green space. The connecting green space is probably going to have trails or passive recreation areas, picnic areas and such, to basically deter any noise, if at all any, and create a natural buffer along this nice quiet residential street. The vehicular access for disc golf, including parking, we are looking into acquiring that access through US 287 Frontage Road. Where the parking lot for disc golf, we're still considering that based off of the feedback we have received, and we're still looking into seeing if this is feasible at this time. So that's why all of the three is basically your disc golf. It's strategically placed on that side of the park, as you can see. These display boards are also up there. You can get closer, you can ask any questions, which we'll have plenty of time to do that today. So I wanted to quickly go over the proposed park improvements that we're making at this park. We have looked at what's included in the grant and what we think is going to become a part of the program for this park. So there's going to be playground with swings for 2 separate age groups. There's going to be pavilions and picnic areas, hike and bike trails, open spaces and natural areas will be preserved. There's going to be exercise stations along the trail. There's going to be obviously the disc golf course. There's the security cameras. There's going to be parking lot improvements to make it a safer and a better place for everyone. There's going to be intersection improvements to improve traffic circulation. So we are looking at infrastructure improvements as well. And then there's going to be a park entry sign. So that's a quick summary of some of the park improvements we are looking at. And having said that, I'm going to jump into what we have been waiting for to talk about the proposed disc golf. So we feel like we have done research, but we are here today to listen to you and to seek more feedback on this subject. So having said that, I'm going to quickly go into, I know many of you probably already play the sport, but I still want to go through some slides to give a background on how we got here. So what is disc golf? Disc golf is also known as a frisbee golf. It's a flying disc sport in which players throw a disc at a target or a basket. The sport is typically played on a course with 9 holes or 18 holes, baskets. The sport is played in over 40 countries and is widely gained popularity. So why did we select this disc golf for this park is the question we have been getting from the neighborhood, and why is it happening here in my backyard, or why is this happening here at this park? This is a quiet neighborhood park, and so we have put some information here together. Hopefully, if any of you from the neighborhood can bring this back to your neighbors and gives you some insight into how great this sport is and what this could do for the neighborhood and for the future. So this is a relatively quiet sport. This sport is a great way to get outdoors and improve mental and physical well-being. This is the one sport that you can integrate really well with natural areas and work with the topography and the terrain without having to cut down trees. And so preserving natural areas, shade trees, creek corridors, which we have, view sheds, which we have, and thus adding to, so all of this, retaining this works really well with this sport because it adds to the adventure and the recreational engagement component of this project. And this can be obviously developed, like I said, on any terrain, and we are requiring minimum disturbance as possible. Also can be played by people of all ages. It is considered as a low impact exercise, and it's all weather grounds kind of sport. It's accessible at all skill levels, so even beginner or kids can learn this really quickly, play with grandparents, have social gatherings around this, making it really versatile. And it's fun, exciting, engaging, and social. And so that's what the pictures depict here, kind of, anybody can play it, learn it really quickly, it's really fun to play, and there's a lot of things that can happen. So why McKnight Park West? Why did we choose to put it at this specific park? So it is an ideal location. We feel that this is an ideal location for such a sport. We think this is a quiet sport that would fit right in. The site is so uniquely, its existing conditions are such that it lends itself to create that adventure and yet separate the quiet areas from the disc golf areas, which are moved set back away from the neighborhood significantly. So there's natural areas in this park, there are existing shade trees, there's creek corridors to work around with, there's open areas as well, and view corridors. In addition to that, there is an option for segregated vehicular access, which is important because as we heard from the neighbors, we don't want cars lining up on that neighborhood street. So we are looking into considering moving that access over on the other side. There's topography that lends itself in the terrain, and there's plenty of recreational opportunities to take advantage of. So that's a quick analysis of why we think that it might be a good fit. It's a good fit at this park. So having said that, here's a quick amenities associated with what we are generally thinking around this. We haven't yet made the determination if this is going to be an 18-hole or a 9-hole. We would like to make this an 18-hole course, but it's considerably depends upon the site conditions, the existing site conditions and its constraints. we intend to, and we would like to develop a well-balanced course with short variations, some completely through the wooded areas, some and pre-crossings, partially some areas, some parts going through partially wooded areas, and some through the open areas. So there's enough challenge, there's enough interest, and we try to integrate the part 3s, part 4s, and maybe a part 5 if you can. So we are looking at all of those options. We're looking into beginner level to intermediate skill levels. We're looking at one configuration that becomes like a beginner or a practice area for casual players or recreational players. We are also looking into seeing if we can do like a 9-hole course within the 18-hole, where if somebody wanted to just play 9 and exit, they could do that as well, adding to some level of interest and bringing some of those other beginners who are interested in the course, maybe learning about it, concrete tee areas. Obviously, signs are really important, different signs at the tee areas, not just that, even the map of the course, water fountains, trash receptacles, baskets, and a separate parking area and vehicular access to this location. So this is a quick, brief list that we have put together at this point. Again, like I said, this is still evolving. We are still looking into improving this as we go. So these are some pictures of from some of the amenities that shows what a basket looks like. Those of you who don't know, this is one of the corridors to which with the sign right here to play with, and this is actually one of the local disc golf here at Cedar Hill. So these are some of the popular local disc golf courses, not too far from us here in Mansfield, and really widely used and popular. The Lester Lodge Park Disc Golf here at Cedar Hill, the Veterans Park, Arlington, the Turner Park Disc Golf at Brain Prairie, and Sonoma Park. This is actually a neighborhood park, 9-hole course. So we are looking at all of these courses and more, but these are just some of them, and these are pictures of some of them that we are looking at. We would like to go visit and see what people are enjoying out there, what they are looking at. So out of the survey and otherwise, since we started working on it until now, these 4 are like the primary questions besides the others that we have gotten that I want to try and provide some answers to. So the first question being, has a professional disc golf designer been selected? Obviously, James summarized it, there is none. We have a prime consultant, Studio 13, which is who has been helping us with the park development aspect of the project. But with disc golf being a specialty, we are looking into professional designers, bringing in professional designers through a RFQ process, which is request for qualifications, where anybody gets an opportunity to submit those qualifications to us. There will be a criteria outline through which a committee would be put together, and all the proposals will be looked at and qualifications will be reviewed. Will it be a 9-hole or 18-hole course? We are trying to do an 18-hole, like I said, but we still have to further evaluate, look at some of the challenges we have at the site and how we can make that work. What skill levels will be offered at this disc golf? We are looking into offering beginner, intermediate, and some advanced level pars. That's our intent to kind of integrate those, but again, we'll have to see how much of the area that's developable is possible for us to include some of those advanced level pars in there. And then will tournaments be held at this location? We don't know that. The simple answer to that is we don't know, because that will largely depend upon where we land. Once we have a disc golf designer on board, we will have those discussions. We do not have an answer to that at this point. So those are some of the common questions. And so the implementation timeline, are there any questions so far? I know I'm kind of going really fast on this, but I want to quickly go through this and then let you ask me more questions. Yes?
Down there where it said, would there be tournaments? What was your answer again?
We don't know. We do not know if there's going to be any tournaments. I'm not saying yes or no, because that largely depends upon what skill level we are able to offer at that course. And so since we don't know that, at this time, I do not have a definite answer.
You don't think there'd be a lot of traffic down there on Palm Street?
We are going to try to segregate that. Like I mentioned, we are very seriously considering looking into a separate access into the disc golf area, And so that's something we will certainly look into. Even,
Can I interject for just a
yes,
second? I just want to say, based upon the input of the information we received so far, most of this would be a beginner, intermediate, and there may be something like a Saturday morning, something that would go on, nothing like an international or a local or regional or something. Because in order to have those types of tournaments, I would believe that you would have to have a more of a professional layout course that would lend itself to that. So based upon the current program that we've heard so far, beginner, intermediate, it would probably limit that.
that would be fair assessment.
But if you're getting professionals to help design it, it's gonna end up being a problem.
Not
Yeah, so we are getting a professional to help us because this is a complicated site. As you have seen, it's part of it is going to be possibly underwater. So we do need professional designers, whether it's a small course or a large course, to make those accurate judgment and decisions and guide us through that process. It doesn't mean that we would end up with a professional level because they may determine that that's not possible here. So that's the reason we want somebody who has complete knowledge about the disc golf and park development to help us guide through that process at this time.
One more question, please.
Yes.
On the map here, the number 1, Palm Street, the tree shaded area, but then 3 starts, looks like pretty close after the tree lines go. Does that mean disc golf could come up that far?
No, so that is just that's a bubble diagram or sketch. That is not an accurate depiction of what would be the limits of the disc golf. That is us taking a crayon and trying to understand what's possible with the data we have at this time. So once we look into the engineering data we gather and we collect and we look into the details, we'll exactly know the limits. But that's, at this time, that is just a very broad overview, and that might change. So that doesn't mean that that's going to be the exact limit. Like I said,
That's pretty close to me up there. Just slightly more than 100 yards probably from my house.
yes, I mean, that is a sketch at this time, and we'll probably have something once we have a professional disc golf.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? Yes?
Well, just 2 things on that. I think the DGTA needs to sanction a spot where they would professionally play a tournament. So I wouldn't, necessarily be concerned about it right now. They have big old teachers on professional events. They have specific courses that they have to play. So not sure that this would fall into that category to be worrying about it too much. Also, too, if you've never been playing disc golf, I'd love to take you and show you how it's played. So maybe you could quell some concerns that you're having about having a disc golf course around your house.
I'm concerned about traffic on my quiet little street.
I hear you.
And all the parents and kids that walk their kids and their dogs and the quietness we have now, don't want a lot of car traffic.
It's
We got
understandable.
enough teenagers spinning wheels down there in the parking lot now.
Yes.
I think it's valuable if you understand the sport as well. Most people that are gonna be in that area at any given time is gonna be between 4 to possibly 12 people, and you run on groups of 4 to 6 max at a given time, and nobody's ever gonna be in one location at any given time, because just like golf, you're gonna be segregated. People are gonna be, even in the tournament, it's rotating.
It's rotating.
Nobody's gonna ever be in one specific place unless you're stuck in the woods. But other than that, I mean,
Yes.
it's a free flowing sport. And even on a tournament, like you mentioned on Saturday morning, they're usually within 2-3 hours and everybody's gone. It's never all day. You look on any UDisc app and it's gonna say activity today is 12 people within a 2-hour time frame.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And just to reiterate what the first gentleman said, it's a quiet sport, and if it's like you said, beginner to intermediate holes, that's going to attract a younger, a more novice type crowd that is gonna, like even adults over the, 30 years that I've played, very peaceful, and it's a very quiet game. It's just, one of the loudest things you'll get is the disc hitting the basket, and wahoo, you made a hole in one, you know? And that number one
Yes,
on this bubble map, that is a green space that separates,
yes,
correct?
yes,
Between
that
the
is
disc
buffer.
golf course.
Yes. Yes.
Right, so it would create a quiet zone. And every course that I've played at, except for like in undeveloped areas, you integrate the nature, and that's what makes it so enjoyable. And you know, trees create silence.
Yes,
It doesn't
it
really
does.
travel.
Yeah.
Just
No, that's
now,
great.
parking is a big
Yes, and
concern.
we are certainly
Sure.
looking into that. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, I think one of the things with parking, if we can address that right quick, Ms. Lee, we talked the other day about, spinning the wheels and doing donuts in the front parking lot. Based upon some of the current design planning theory we're looking at, is bringing that out in conversations with our transportation department, bringing that out, putting a smaller area right at the street, enhancing that intersection, and not bringing it down into the park. So that would hopefully address a lot of the concerns that we've heard of running stop signs, running fast down through there, and having that basically unwarranted activity in the park that we don't want. So we want to put good users in so that it takes away bad users out of the park as well.
But wouldn't putting, like we talked the other day, wouldn't moving the parking lot up closer to Wisteria and Palm, why can't the parking lot stay where it is? Keep the traffic down away from that intersection.
Well, in order to actually look at the design of that parking lot, moving that parking lot out brings any activities that we have that are not really conducive to neighborhood activities. Bringing it out brings it up to the street, solves some of the street problems, and looking at putting the actual major activity parking, disc golf, off of 287, separates that activity. So I think that helps with a lot of addressing these areas. If we leave it down in the park, we're always gonna have those activities in the park. The park gate wouldn't close, our normal park hours are till 11 o'clock at night. The gate wouldn't close till that time. So you're still gonna have people go down there and even middle of the afternoon, when no one's down in the park and it's hot, turning donuts. But when we get it out in some of the other parks, by the time you call, they're gone and it's gone. Now, we will be adding security cameras into the park to address that. But working with our transportation department, our transportation engineers, and the street, and listening to the residents and you guys out there, we feel that's probably our best solution, is to bring that up, make the park a park for people instead of for vehicles, and increase y'all's maybe circulation with trail loops and how we provide the buffers between the neighborhood and the disc golf, and how it really begins to integrate together.
And and I would just like to add to that, that bringing that parking lot closer to the street also will help the PD, patrol that area better. With it being tucked back within the trees like that parking lot, that's not the best location for it in terms of monitoring what's happening at that location.
I've just seen a lot of congestion with it being that close to Wisteria and Palm.
So we will have traffic engineers working on that, who will know and who will be able to guide us through that process, who will see what's safe for that location, because public safety is the key, and that's what we are doing. We are doing what's safe, not just for today, but for 50 years from now. So
I'm
that's,
all for the park and something quiet, but not the golf is gonna, the teenagers are attracted to it, I know that. I've been told that, I've been studying some about it, and we got enough teens and people down there at nighttime. We don't need anything else. We want it quiet.
and it will be,
there's any
And
teams
the
in
new
here.
parking lot's gonna be so close to that place.
it will be way smaller than
Their
their existing parking lot.
area. And that
My
one,
offer
yeah,
still
is
stands.
that fast.
My offer still stands. I'll take you to this golf and you can go We can go through some discs, you and me, you can see how it goes. That way you understand, like, how it's played, the people that are around and stuff like that. I'd be perfectly happy taking it with me.
Yes, go.
I was just thinking, possible that there's some consideration that the first few holes could be on the east part,
Yeah,
and that way we use the parking over there, and then they'll walk under the bridge to go to the rest of the.
there's going to be a bridge crossing, yes. So it's certainly looking at that, yes.
That's the point I was gonna make. If that parking lot goes in by 287,
That's where it's going to
and
go.
that's where the course starts. That's where all of the disc golf is going to go. They're all going to that parking lot. Nobody wants to get off the highway, drive down Broad, drive down a little neighborhood street, and
Yeah.
start in the middle of the
That's
course.
not where it's going to be. The disc
They're all
golf-
gonna go to that parking lot. Unless you happen to live in that neighborhood, you might walk in the side door or something. But all the people who are playing it are gonna wanna go to the beginning of it, which is gonna be over by that parking lot.
Yeah, let me clarify, like you said, under the bridge, this part is all west of 287. McKnight Park East is on the other side, and wouldn't be, there could be maybe some future holes in that woods on the other side, but right now, we're not planning anything on that side, so I just want to clarify that.
Any other questions before I finish this? I mean, we do have a question for the group, so I just want to quickly talk to you about the implementation timeline here. We are looking at executing agreement with TPWD for the grant in September. The public engagement meetings, we are here right now. We'll take the feedback that we get and we'll finalize the master plan in September of 2024. The design, the detailed design and engineering for the park and hopefully for the disc golf will begin and go through fall of 2024. The project would tentatively bid sometime in spring of 2025. Construction to happen from summer through fall of 2025 and substantial completion in spring of 2026. So that's our timeline for this entire project.
I do want to qualify one thing. We put the schedule together prior to deciding on how we might engage the disc golf design team. That's going to take a little bit of time for us to get an RFQ, for everybody to get their stuff together so that we can evaluate it. So our finalization of our master plan, I don't think we can have that in a month, so this is going to push just a little bit. I just wanted to clarify
Yes,
that.
thank you.
But we are still on the pretty much this time frame to have this project complete sometime in the spring of 2026.